So for our third presentation, please join me in welcoming Devin LaFleche from the town of Cochrane. Devin graduated from McGill's Masters of Planning, Urban Planning program in 2018. His research at McGill in collaboration with the City of Calgary focused on quality outcome management in the planning process. As the transit coordinator for the town of Cochrane, he led the design and implementation of COLT, Cochrane On-Demand Local Transit, North America's first fully on-demand stop-to-stop local transit service. The COLT service addressed key issues of service cost, coverage, and span while assuring flexibility so the service could be adjusted based on actual service demand. In his new role as Special Projects Planner, Devin now oversees the operation of COLT, the design of a new regional service integration into Calgary, and the management of the town's renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to Devin to talk about the COLT program.
Thanks, Yvonne. I'm Devin LaFleche, Special Projects Planner for the town of Cochrane, Alberta. I'm going to be presenting on our Cochrane On-Demand Local Transit, or COLT service. I want to start out, though, by first thanking FCM. On behalf of the town of Cochrane, we're honored to receive this award for sustainable communities and transportation. I also want to thank our project partners, Southland Transportation, Rideco, and Alberta Transportation. Without their support, this initiative couldn't have been possible. Innovative, bold, and dynamic, Cochrane is a community that builds its destiny upon our proud Western heritage. We're 20 minutes northwest of the city of Calgary. We have a population of roughly 30,000, and we're often at the top of the list for Canada's fastest growing municipality, as we've more than doubled in the last decade. We also have a vibrant tech sector with companies such as 4i, MC Things, and the national headquarters for Garmin. I think you'll notice from our COLT initiative, we really tried to capture the innovative nature of our community. So when I started with the town of Cochrane back in the spring of 2018, our town council had just appointed a transit task force with members of council, community members, so youth, seniors, paratransit users, as well as social service groups. And I was tasked to lead this group in helping design and then implement a transit service that would meet the needs of Cochrane. My first day, I'm getting walked around the office, and every second or third office, someone goes, "Oh, you're the transit guy." Good luck with that. Which should have been a big red flag. I would find out the reason for that was over the past decade, Cochrane had gotten funding back in 2009 to implement a transit service, and there have been many options presented to town council. All of them would always get kind of caught up on balancing three things: service coverage, so where do we go? Service span, what time do we run? And then service cost. If you wanted the other two, the cost would get too high. So we'd have options come, and they'd often just get rejected by council. So with a pending deadline for the end of 2020 to use our funding, our transit task force and I got to work. So what we did was we explored all the options we could. So we looked at everything from fixed route, subsidized taxis, using a ride-hailing company such as Uber as transit, even autonomous vehicles. Ultimately, we landed on on-demand or demand-responsive transit. The reason for this was it was very flexible. It allowed us to adjust the amount of buses we had on the road, very user-friendly and very cost-efficient. We also went with so your conventional transit route, it runs on a loop, it goes from stop to stop. Rather than doing that, we ran a service where the bus only goes where it's requested. So we don't send it to the furthest stop unless it's actually been requested, and it's up to the minute routing. So if it's on the way and it can actually pick up another rider on the way without violating the arrive before time, it'll add that person to the route. We also did a stop-to-stop service instead of curb-to-curb. So we actually have it as physical stops. It allows us to control where the bus goes, as well as it makes it easier for us to integrate fixed route when demand is there. So with a plan of a service in place, we wanted to go out to the community and really create this Made in Cochrane solution. So we conducted one of the town's most robust public engagements. Went to all the town events, went to all the seniors living facilities, went to the schools, met with all the different community groups we could, and then also did a really good job engaging internally to make sure all of our staff was aware, and they gave their feedback on service standards. So what should fares be? How much should we pay for the service? What kind of hours should we operate? What type of bus? Even what kind of wait times, and should we have food and drinks on board? So when we got all this, we went and we created this service. We even we're able to do full coverage of the community. So over 90% of the community is within a 400-meter walking distance of the stop. And for the same service hours and coverage we offer, with a fixed route, it would have been, we're actually at 1/3 the cost of that fixed route. So we had found our solution. We then went out to an RFP, or competitive bid process, and we ended up partnering with Southland Transportation, a subsidiary of Pacific Western Transportation, and Rideco, a software company based out of Waterloo. And I can't say enough great things about them, and we're very happy with our partnership. So October 7th marked the launch of our highly anticipated Colt service. It wasn't without bumps in the road. So with our pending launch, we actually had our buses that we'd ordered were delayed. So luckily, Calgary Transit stepped up and graciously offered us 3 buses to make sure that we could launch on time. The first 3 months of service, we actually saw immense ridership. We had over 12,000 riders, which exceeded our expectation by 5,000 riders. In the first month, we had over 5,000 registered users, and we had a ride rating. So after each trip, you leave a 5-star rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars. And we've actually been able to maintain that, so we're very proud of that. And I want to explain our service actually through 4 of our common users. The first being Janet. Janet's a student, she has a part-time job, and she really loves the Colt service for the ease of booking and using the service. She's able to use it on her phone, she gets real-time information on when her bus is, and she finishes school, she books her ride, and she can get to her part-time job. Also at $25 a month for her student monthly pass, she's able to save up because her big goal is to go to University of Calgary next year. And I'll talk about a regional service integration we're looking at, and we're hoping to take her there next year as well. Our next rider is Bill. Bill's a senior, and he's drove most of his life. He's not too familiar with tech, but he's willing to give it a try. He lives in a senior living facility, and he's on a fixed income. What Bill really loves about the service is how inclusive the design is. We went out to the community. He loves that he can book by calling in over the phone, or he can use the web page or app. He also loves that he can pay by cash, or buy tickets, and as well as he can pay through the app as well. When he first started his first trip that he did, we'd done lessons at all the senior living facilities, so he had his lesson, but he still wasn't quite comfortable, so he called into our dispatch. They were able to walk him through the process, and now he books all his trips with the app. And one last thing is that he really loves that all of our buses are wheelchair accessible with a ramp in the entrance. So when his wife comes with a walker, it's very easier for her to join him on the trip. And lastly, he just uses a phone his daughter had given him, and he actually doesn't have any data. So he really likes that the service sends text messages so that when he's out on his trip, when he's waiting for his return trip, he can actually get a text when the bus is on its way, when it's arrived, or if it's going to be late at all. And then we have Kim and her daughter, Anna. Anna's riding the bus for her first time. Kim's very excited because she's hoping Anna can start using the Colt service more frequently so that she can go to visit her friends. And also when Kim's driving back from her work in Calgary, she can actually book a trip for Anna and make sure Anna's at her swim class on time after school. One other thing that Kim's one of our more interesting riders. The ones I just discussed before that were really our riders by need. Kim's our rider by choice. So she's looking at actually getting her house down to a 1-car household. And she's going to have her husband use that car. She's going to use Colt for her local trips. And then she's going to use our new integrated service to get into Calgary. So during COVID-19, we've actually seen that our on-demand service is very flexible, and it was actually able to adjust. When we saw the pandemic hit, ridership had dropped, and we were actually able to keep the service we had, but reduce the number of buses we had on the road. So we actually were saving 50% on our operating costs, and now we're projected to come in under budget, which is kind of a rarity in the transit agency for this year. We've also have some pretty big plans to start upgrading all of our stops. When we first planned the service, we just made it very flexible. So attaching signs to existing poles. Now that we've adjusted the service, our 152 stops has moved down to 145. And we're actually now going to start investing more in those stops. So putting benches and shelters. And then the last thing we're looking at doing is to integrate with a regional service. So we'll be actually having our Colt buses. They go out throughout the community. They come to a central hub where we'll have a bus that takes people into Calgary, going to the University of Calgary, the C-Train in Calgary, SAIT, downtown Calgary, the Foothills Hospital, and Banff in the summer months. I'm just very excited that I was able to come and present on our Colt service. We love it for how cost-effective, user-friendly, and how able it is to adapt to a dynamic community like Cochrane. I'll be in the breakout room to answer any questions. Thank you.